This is Healthy Minds, Better Lives, once a month. Tom Dyer, myself, Toby Ellis, or the lovely Ronnie J. I have the privilege of catching up with Tammy Foley and Hayley Twig Wheeler, our specialists and respective professionals in their area, enabling us to have these quite tough conversations and hopefully just to be able to gain some awareness and discussion and support for you during these very difficult times. It's a sad and hardened fact that domestic abuse this time of year is well and truly on the up. The emergency services and the police are certainly tested and stressed this time of year amongst family feuds and arguments, heightened tensions, whether it be money worries or just the kids sending you absolutely delally. It just has a big knock-on effect, really. And Hayley, you've actually wrote a book on domestic violence.
Yeah, it was an accidental book. I was working for a domestic violence charity, and I'm really passionate about the topic. And I was working with female victims at the time and child victims. And we were going through the Freedom Programme. I wrote this leaflet, which turned into 164 pages, maybe more around coercive control as opposed to the violence side. But coercive control at the time wasn't a term that we used. It was written back in 2011, I think it was. And it wasn't a term that was really used or recognised at the time. It's become quite prevalent now. But it's the things that people don't understand about domestic abuse. The violence, people tend to not necessarily understand how it happens, but they understand what it is. But the emotional and psychological side, people tend not to understand it as much. I used to be told quite often I'd leave if they hit me, but the hitting generally is not the first thing. The first thing is the emotional and psychological abuse that happens very, very quickly, if not before you've even physically met, particularly with online now. It happens very, very quickly, meeting somebody. So it is a big topic. As I said earlier, at the start of the show, it's 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men. So the numbers aren't greatly different either. And yet we tend to consider, when we talk about domestic violence, we tend to consider female victims more so than we do male victims.
So domestic abuse, I mean, what is it?
It's where you're controlled in any aspect of your life. So whether that's financial, emotional, psychological, isolation even, it can be any type of, anybody where that is exerting some kind of power or control over you. That's domestic violence or domestic abuse. Obviously, we've got the physical, as we've said, and it's one of the obvious ones I think people know about. But we don't consider, financial can be somebody just making all the financial decisions. That's not to say if you've agreed in your relationship that one partner is going to take on the financial responsibilities and make all the decisions, that's fine. But if somebody is doing that and you have no choice and you have no access to money or you have no access to the bills and what's going on with your money, that can be financial control. So it's about understanding the intricacies of the different types of control as well.
I'm guessing, Hayley, just jumping in there, it's kind of like really subtle as well to begin with.
Absolutely. Within the first 30 seconds, of just an online presence sometimes. When I did some training, I'm talking years ago and things possibly have changed now, but people would go looking for vulnerable Facebook profiles. So they look specifically for the types of posts that make people vulnerable so that they know that they are controllable and they're able to manipulate them, which is quite scary, really.
Really
It's
scary.
incredibly scary. Yeah, incredibly scary.
But yeah, you are right. It is very subtle. Otherwise, they wouldn't be successful with it.
No, and I was going to say it's incremental as well. It's a gradual process as opposed to what we kind of almost think of as, like you say, the physical side of domestic abuse. And I'm guessing then when there's intense periods where people are together in those confined spaces, the abuse escalates, whether it's a financial or domestic or emotional.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern around lockdowns over the last 2 years where families were stuck in that, within the four walls, particularly, if you think about a family of 4 stuck in flats. Now, we're not saying that there's an excuse for somebody to be abusive in any way, shape or form, male or female. We're not saying that. But these are pressures and influences on how people are coping with things and what can happen to people when they are put under pressure. That's not to say that some people don't choose to be that way, but it's, you know, on the lead up to Christmas, we're talking about Christmas now, and we're really close to Christmas. It can be a really scary time for somebody who is in that relationship, who maybe the relationship has been quite calm recently, but with the addition of parties, drinking, financial pressures, there's lots of things that can be that pressure point and create, I don't want to say the abuse, but create an abusive situation. So it's quite, if you have been in that situation, or you maybe think that it's on its way because you see some of the signs, now is the time to prepare yourself. If you maybe need to leave, or you need to keep yourself safe, it would be good.
I was just about to ask that, actually. And just sorry to jump in, it's just that whole kind of like that spike of kind of like being in the situation, the intensity with alcohol, for example, is as how do people then just go about keeping themselves safe?
Most couples will know each other very well. There's a predictability about it. You know, looking from the outside in, it feels very unpredictable. But when you've been in there for some time, there is a predictability about it. So it is about, you know, collecting your driver's license or your passport or your birth certificates, your bank details, your bank cards, collecting them in one place and giving them to somebody. If you've got a trusted person outside of the house, give them to somebody. Have a plan with somebody if you have that trusted person. If they may be the person that you have their number constantly with you. Pack a little bag. If you've got children, maybe put some toys in a bag somewhere safe. Maybe you want to give them to somebody outside of the home, or keep them out of the way. But in the house as well, you know, if you can stay out of the room, if that's possible, and you can sort of stay in a different room. It's not always possible. I think that's the thing, you know, that there's no judgment here about what you do in this situation, because it's always about keeping yourself safe. But if you can prepare and put steps in place, it's a good time to do it now without them knowing.
I suppose at this time of year as well, you know, if you're already in an abusive relationship and you're maybe, you know, burying your head in the sand a little bit, it'll be okay. You know, you've probably got a lot of hope and expectation that, oh, it'll be okay, we'll have a good Christmas, you know, and all of a sudden then something does happen. You know, I suppose that then you could find yourself in a very difficult position, and you know, a lot more emotional upset then, because obviously you've hoped for something that wouldn't happen, and then it's happened.
I think, as I said earlier, there's a lot of predictability, and there are times where things are peaceful and calm in abusive relationships, but they can sometimes be the most dangerous times, because it can flip very quickly if there's an outside influence, or so a lot of people will be prepared for that. They will be, unfortunately, waiting for that. It's living on that fear, living on eggshells, or, you know, walking on eggshells constantly. So it is about a lot of the relationship, particularly for whether it's a male or female victim, is about trying to pacify and keep the other person happy, so that you reduce the events, the significant events, the abusive events. But it's not always possible to do that. So it's about making sure that you understand your situation and putting those things into practice that you need to put into practice. There is no right or wrong here. It's doing whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe, because there is no judgment about being in that relationship. We'd all like to think that everything is rosy, but none of us know what exactly goes on behind anybody's closed doors.
Where can people go to find out any more information or support and help on this, Hayley?
There's lots of different places. I mean, obviously online there's Refuge. They have information for male and female victims. There's Mankind. There's a couple of links I think you're going to pop up later. But yeah, you know, there's lots of numbers. This is I don't want to say the number now, just in case I've got it wrong, because I used to remember the refuge number. I'll just check for
It's
it now.
okay.
But
We'll put it in the comments section.
yeah, there's lots of different avenues of support, non-judgmental support, and people who will help you get out if you need to get out. But obviously, there's the police, 999, and they will come and help you leave if you need to leave.
Must be incredibly difficult. I mean, personally, I've never been in that situation. But I mean, loving someone and having kids, and then you've got Christmas and the expectation, but also knowing in the back of your mind that there could be this flippant outrage, or there could be, it could take a turn. It must be awful to live with. It must be very difficult.
Yeah, you mentioned hope earlier, and there's always a little bit of hope. That's what keeps people in the relationship, because there is hope that person is the person that they met initially, that those nice bits are coming back, and that just for this Christmas maybe they'll be fine, just for tomorrow they'll be fine. And I think we all like a little bit of hope, but unfortunately it doesn't always pan out.
And again, I think that's really poignant. Sorry, Toby. I just think that we like that, that the glass half full, that hope that maybe somebody will change, or that inkling, or you see that inkling of somebody, or that someone that you used to know, that kindness, etc. And we all want to avoid conflict. So yeah, really important topic.
And I think as well, there is a possibility of, even in an abusive relationship, having a good Christmas too. So there is that possibility that maybe everything will be okay, but I think the main thing is about keeping yourself safe.
Yeah, most definitely. And those links we'll get onto our Facebook as well, refuge.org, Women's Aid, NHS, Men's Advice Line, Mankind, and Safer Wales as well. Wonderful website, actually. We've had that featured on another show before, actually, support for male victims of domestic abuse or violence in Wales. Because, I mean, as you rightly said, 1 in 4, Hayley, affects women, but 1 in 6 actually affects men as well. I think sometimes when you sort of say domestic abuse or domestic violence, you automatically assume it's a man on a woman, but it is the other way as well. It's a two-way street, that one.
Absolutely. And it's really tough not to judge people when they are the perpetrator. But I've worked with perpetrators as well. And without making any excuses, I'm not making any excuses, their lives can be quite tough too. We just would love for them to go and get the help that they need as well. So there are places out there for them to go and get help. And that's important as well, that if they are feeling ready to go and get help, they can go and get help as well.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Some great advice there. And then, of course, you can check out any of those links that are up on our socials now. If it has affected you, or if you would like any help or support, please do head there. Right, Mariah Carey plays now here on Pure West Radio. Healthy Minds, Better Lives. We'll have a roundup of today's discussions on the way next here